Hola a todos, hoy vamos a hablar sobre los diminutivos en español. Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about diminutives in Spanish. I almost said español, but yes, diminutives. Now, what are diminutives? Now, these are words that are used for the following purposes. Now, it is worth noting that we also have these words in English. In English, they are going to take the forms of suffixes that are placed at the end of words, and the context is going to pretty much be the same. So an examples of the diminutives in English would be birdie, Johnny, even booklet, right? The let indicates that it is a smaller version, right? So yeah, we also have these words in English. And another, we could also say like little boy. We could also use little with the whatever it is that we're talking about to as a diminutive. Okay. But when it comes to Spanish, you're going to see the suffix ito or ita for the most part. Of course, there are exceptions, but for the most part, you're going to see ito or ita. Now, before we get into the formation, let's look at the context in which they're used. So, the diminutives are words that are used for the following purposes. One, which is probably the most popular purpose, is to express that something is small and cute. So when we want to refer to an object that is small in size but is also cute, we can use a diminutive to refer to it. So mesita, that comes from the word mesa, table. So if you have a table that's small and adorable, like for example, a table that you would find in an infant classroom, you could say esa mesita es muy bonita. So that little table is very beautiful. Okay? So that just means that the table is not only small, but it is also cute. Two, to express endearment. So if we want to illustrate or express affection, we can use a diminutive. So for example, perdón, abuelito. This comes from abuelo, granddad. The original form is a little bland. So this, using a diminutive, signifies a strong relationship, a strong affection, right? So when we use this to refer to like family members, it conveys a very strong emotional connection and bond that could not have that cannot really be conveyed via the original form. Okay, so that's the best way to put it. So abuelito just signifies of deep affection for your grandfather or your granddad. Three, to decrease importance. So if we have a situation and we want to reduce it or minimize its seriousness, we can use a diminutive. Okay, so for example, problemita. Naturally, that comes from the word problema, which is a problem, and a problem can be big or it can be small, right? So we are saying that when we add ita, that this is a little problem, even if it is a big problem, but using problemita reduces the seriousness of that particular problem. Tengo un problemita versus tengo un problema. So problemita suggests that the problem is not that serious. It's not a big deal, right? So you see how we can use language, even just the morphology, how morphology affects meaning. Muy bien. 4. To talk to children. We call this child-directed speech. It is characterized by simplified language, and it is playful. So we can use diminutives to engage children, okay? Pajarito, so the little bird or the birdie. 5. To express sarcasm. I should also say our contempt. So when we say, for example, señorito, that comes from señor, which means sir, Mr., etc. But señor, señorito, we can use this to refer to someone who is arrogant, someone who thinks very highly of himself. But really and truly, he should not be arrogant, because he maybe is a case where he has nothing to be arrogant about, but yet he still carries himself with a lot of pride. So we can call him a señorito. So we can use it to express sarcasm or contempt. So let me give you a sentence. Este señorito necesita callarse. So this snob, we could translate it as snob. This snob needs to be quiet. Este señorito necesita callarse. Muy bien. And 6, to add emphasis. Right? We can use it to add emphasis. So ahorita, that comes from ahora. So ahora means now, but ahorita means right now. So it's emphasizing the time. Yes. So these are the 6 uses of diminutives in Spanish. Let's continue. So let's get into formation now. They can be formed with adjectives, for example, guapito from guapo. Adverbs, despacito. I know most of you are familiar with this song. Despacito. I can't sing, but you know, yeah. People, abuelita. And names, Pedrito. So we can also form diminutives from the names of people. All right? Now, let's look at the rules when it comes to the formation. So before I do that, when it comes to the formation, rules of gender and number will apply. So the suffix that is chosen must agree with the gender and number of the, well, in the case of a noun, yes, it must agree with the gender and number, and in the case of an adjective, it must agree, right? So for nouns and adjectives, for sure, gender and number, yes, gender and number rules apply, because gender and number go hand in hand, okay? So yes, the suffixes ito and ita are usually placed at the end of a word to create a diminutive. So that's the general rule, all right? But let's get into more specific rules. So if the word ends in A or O, the 2 vowels, you just replace this vowel with ita or ito. Of course, ita would correspond to the feminine, whereas ito will correspond to the masculine, okay? So casa becomes casita. We remove the A and we add ita because it's feminine. We can't say casito. We have to say casita because the word is feminine. If we want to make that plural, we would say casitas, little houses, okay? Perro becomes perrito. Because, you know, it ends in an O. So we remove the O and we add ito because it's singular and masculine. Mano becomes manita. Why manita? Because mano is feminine. We say la mano, not el mano. We say la mano. So manita. And cosa becomes cosita. Tengo algunas cositas que hacer. I have a few things to do. Or tengo algunas cositas. I have some, well, that would translate, I have some things to do, but you're still minimizing the things that you have to do. You're making them seem less, that they're not as, let's just say not as important. Yeah, because, yeah, cositas instead of saying cosas. So you're minimizing them. So, cosa, cosita. Muy bien. La segunda regla. If the word has two syllables and ends in E-R-I-N-U or an accented vowel, we add cito or cita. So let's look at the examples. Amor, two syllables, that means love. And we have amorcito. Why cito? Because amor is masculine, okay? Avión, airplane. So if we want to say the little airplane, we say avioncito and we remove the accent. Avioncito. Avión is masculine. Well, I could say at least two syllables because this is, let's just remove this. Let me say has two or more, because avión has three. Avión, right? That has three. So three or more. I mean, sorry, two or more. And it ends in these letters. We add cito or cita. So cafe ends in an accented vowel. Therefore, it becomes cafecito once again because it's masculine. All right. Muy bien. Next rule, if the word ends in a consonant apart from N or R, so any other consonant apart from these two, the N and the R, we just add ito or ita at the end of the word, okay? So if it ends in a consonant, right, and it is not, if it ends in a consonant, apart from those two, we just add ito or ita. So for example, reloj, that's clock or watch. It ends in J or J. So we just add ito, relojito, the little watch, right? And papel, that ends in L, right? And it will take the form of papelito, so little paper. Papel, papelito. All right. So, and as you see, these have two syllables because it's two or more syllables, right? Okay, we have some more rules to cover. Let's get to them. Sigamos con las reglas. Let's continue with the rules. So if the word ends in Z, ZA, or ZO, the Z is replaced with the C and ito or ita is added. So we make this spelling change so that the pronunciation can be accommodated. So this is done for pronunciation purposes. So lapis becomes lapicito, right? It ends in Z, the Z changes to C, and then we add ito or ita depending on the gender. So pencil, lapicito, little pencil. Lapis is masculine, of course. Cerveza, beer. Beer as in the alcoholic beverage. Cervecita, because it's feminine. It ends in ZA. So the Z changes to C. And we add ita. So the A is removed, of course. If the word has a C close to the end of the word, the C changes to QU and ito or ita is added. So banco, which is the word for bank or bench. Banquito, so the C changes to QU and, of course, the last letter is removed. Banquito, so little bench or even little bike, right? Flaca becomes flaquita because flaca could be a noun or an adjective. Flaquita. If the word has a G close to the end of the word, the G changes to GU and ito or ita is added. So, amigo, my friend. Amiguito. I apologize if you can hear some hammer in the background. Neighbor is using a hammer. I apologize if that sound is, if you can hear that sound. I sincerely apologize. So, amigo becomes amiguito. Trago becomes traguito. Trago would be a sip, sip. So, traguito. Muy bien. If a word has one syllable, add esito or esita. So flor becomes florecita because flor is feminine. Solecito. And pan, bread, panecito. So if it has one syllable, we add esito or esita. And finally, if a word ends with two vowels together, we add esito or esita. So lluvia, rain, becomes lluviecita. So we remove the last vowel and then we add the ending that corresponds to the gender. So lluvia becomes lluviecita, serio becomes seriecito because we remove the O and then we add the ending. And because we're talking about this is a masculine adjective, it would be seriecita. If it were feminine, it would be seriecita. And the original form would be seria, right? So seria would be seriecita. Muy bien. A few points to note. Depending on where you are in the Spanish-speaking world, you may hear some variation when it comes to the suffix. Normally, we use ito, esito, or cito, or cita, but in some countries, io, ia is used, or even ico or ica. So instead of saying perrito in some parts of the Spanish-speaking world, perrico is used, like little, like doggy, right? And there are also diminutives that can be used for as in a derogatory way, but we will not get into those today, okay? Ok, eso es todo por hoy. Espero que ustedes hayan entendido este tema. Muchas gracias por ver mis videos y hasta la vista.